Blackroot was the kind of place that didn't appear on maps. Tucked deep in a valley surrounded by dense woods, it was a village frozen in time. The houses were crooked and weathered, the streets unpaved, and the people strange. They spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting to the trees as if expecting them to listen. Mara, a botanist researching rare plants, arrived in Blackroot on a misty autumn morning. The villagers eyed her with suspicion, but offered her a room at the inn. "Stay on the paths," the innkeeper warned. Mara laughed it off. She was a scientist, after all. Superstition didn't scare her. But that night, as she lay in bed, she heard it. A low, guttural hum, like the forest itself was breathing. The next morning, Mara explored the village. She noticed something odd. Every house had a small wooden box nailed to its doorframe. Inside each box was a handful of soil, black and glistening like oil. "It's an offering," explained old Tom, the village elder. He sat on a porch, whittling a piece of wood into the shape of a tree. "To keep the grove satisfied." "The grove?" Mara asked. Tom's knife stilled. "The heart of the forest. It's alive, you see. Always hungry. We give it soil from our land, and it leaves us be. But if the offering isn't enough..." He trailed off, his eyes distant. Mara scoffed. "You're telling me the trees are alive?" Tom leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Not the trees. What's under them?" That afternoon, Mara ventured into the woods. The air grew colder the deeper she went, and the trees seemed to lean in, their branches tangling overhead. She found the grove at the center of the forest, a circle of ancient oaks, their trunks twisted into grotesque shapes. In the middle of the grove was a hollow, a gaping hole in the earth. The soil around it was black and wet, as if freshly turned. Mara knelt to examine it, but the ground shifted beneath her. Something moved in the hollow. She stumbled back, her heart pounding. The hum she'd heard the night before returned louder now, vibrating in her chest. The trees creaked and groaned, their roots writhing like snakes. Mara ran, the forest closing in around her. When she reached the village, the villagers were waiting. Their eyes were dark, their faces grim. "You shouldn't have gone there," old Tom said. "No, it's seen you." That night, the villagers gathered in the square. They carried torches and wooden boxes filled with soil. Mara watched from her window as they marched into the woods, their voices chanting in a language she didn't understand. Curiosity got the better of her. She followed them to the grove, hiding behind a tree as they formed a circle around the hollow. One by one, they emptied their boxes into the hole. The black soil hissing as it hit the ground. The hum grew louder, and the ground began to shake. The villagers fell silent as something emerged from the hollow. A mass of roots and tendrils, pulsing with a sickly green light. It reached for the nearest villager, a young man, and dragged him into the earth. Mara stifled a scream. The villagers didn't react. They simply turned and walked back to the village, their faces blank. The next morning, Mara confronted old Tom. "What is that thing?" she demanded. "The grove," he said simply. "It's been here longer than the village, longer than memory. It feeds on the land, and sometimes on us." "Why don't you leave?" Mara asked. Tom shook his head. "The grove won't let us. It's in the soil, in the water, in the air we breathe. It's part of us now." Mara didn't believe him. Not until that night when she felt the hum in her own chest. It was faint at first, like a distant heartbeat. But as the days passed, it grew louder, more insistent. She began to dream of the hollow, of the roots wrapping around her, pulling her down. And then she noticed the soil. It clung to her boots, her clothes, her skin. No matter how much she washed, it wouldn't come off. One night, Mara woke to find herself standing in the grove. The villagers were there, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Old Tom held out a wooden box. "It's your turn," he said. Mara tried to resist, but her body moved on its own. She took the box and emptied it into the hollow. The soil hissed, and the roots reached for her. The last thing she heard was the hum vibrating in her bones. Months later, a traveller arrived in Blackroots. The villagers eyed him with suspicion, but offered him a room at the inn. "Stay on the paths," the innkeeper warned. "The woods don't take kindly to strangers." That night, the traveller heard a low, guttural hum. And in the grove, the soil shifted, as if something beneath it was stirred. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this eerie tale, don't forget to leave a like, and if you crave more chilling narratives, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Until next time.